All right, guys, it is official. Jon Jones has retired. Tom Aspinall is now the undisputed UFC heavyweight champion. This, according to Dana White, who mentioned this after the UFC Baku event, ESPN with the tweet. We knew this was coming, right? It was just a matter of when. This was dragged on way too long. Way too long. Tom Aspinall, you saw the video I did on my channel earlier this week talking about Jon Jones just being like, yeah, I don't think I'm going to come back. And Tom Aspinall's just sitting there waiting, being like, I got to move on with my career, right? Tom Aspinall's on the prime of his career right now. We're coming up to a year the last time he fought. Thank God they got this resolved and we can get the heavyweight division moving right now. I'm curious to see whose decision this was. Did the UFC make Jon retire? Did Jon officially say this himself? I'm sure it was the UFC's doing. I'm sure if Jon had it his way, he'd just keep, running the asylum, so to speak, and doing what he wants, right? Because who wouldn't want to give up their belt and say that they're retired? So many people I saw were like, oh, Jon's just doing this for, it's a money thing. He's doing this for more money, or Jon's doing this because he's playing the long game. He's trying to get in Tom's head. All those takes did not age well because he's retired now and the fight with Tom Aspinall is not going to happen. So we got to come to reality. And this is something if you've watched this channel for a while, I said this fight was going to happen. And it's not because I think Jon is afraid to fight Tom Aspinall. I think that Jon doesn't think a win over Aspinall does much for his resume, and it's not worth the risk. I do think Jon thinks that he can lose this fight. That's part of my thinking, is that I don't think it's worth the risk to fight Tom with potentially losing as it would be if he beat him. Now, look, Jon Jones at 205 can't take away the resume that he's had. ESPN sort of goes over it a little bit here. 16 wins in UFC title fights, youngest UFC champion of all time at 23, 20-fight unbeaten streak, 2-division UFC champion, 22 career wins, never been knocked down in his MMA career. It's impressive. Now, got to put a little asterisk on this, right? Because of the steroid allegations and everything else that's happened to Jon over his career. That stuff, unfortunately, is going to rear its ugly head when you look back on Jon's career. But these are the facts. You can't dispute any of this stuff. Just the question is, was he using, during the prime of his career? It's tough to say. The one thing I'm not going to do in this video, which I see a lot of newer fans do, is go through Jon's resume and be like, well, this guy was a middleweight. This guy, discrediting his wins. At the time, there was nobody more dangerous than Jon Jones in the prime of his career. That's a fact. And if you're going to sit here and dispute that, I would almost guarantee you never watched Jon during his title reign, because it was pretty amazing. And say what you want about Jon, he is one of the biggest UFC superstars of all time. Despite the fact that I wasn't happy about how he handled this whole heavyweight situation, not to mention all the stuff that he's done outside the cage, you got to give Jon his credit in terms of elevating the sport, becoming this, big star, and just, having a lot of dominance at 205. That's one thing you can't take away from Jon Jones. It was pretty remarkable. It just sucks that it had to end this way, in the sense of, like, if Jon would have gone and beat Cyril Gane and then he fought Stipe and then said, you know what, I'm good, I don't think anyone would care. It's the fact that he stayed around as champion and held Tom Aspinall hostage. And like I mentioned there, Tom Aspinall holding the record there for the longest interim champ at 586 days. That was unnecessary. They didn't need to do that, especially not when the champion's healthy, right? Like, this isn't Dominic Cruz. That happened in the bantamweight division. Remember, Cruz kept getting injured. And then finally, Renan Barão, they were like, okay, enough's enough. We got to figure out the title thing here. Cruz was injured. That was a totally different situation. Jon Jones held this up on purpose because of his own ego and wouldn't vacate the belt. So I'm just glad to see the heavyweight division moving. Now, if I had to guess, I'm guessing they're going to be doing Tom Aspinall and Cyril Gane next. I don't think Gane won that last fight against Alexander Volkov, but it is a fresh matchup. So there's some intrigue there. Although, saying that, I think Cyril Gane's probably going to get taken to the ground and Tom Aspinall's probably going to submit him. But nonetheless, I'm just happy to see Aspinall move on. And also, maybe Aspinall can get some more credit here. I still see people discrediting him, saying the resume's not good, all this different stuff. That was another argument with Jon Jones, is that, well, Tom hasn't really earned the right to fight him. Yes, he has. He's fought everyone he's asked to fight, and he's beat them all, and he's looked impressive. I know he had the thing with Blades, the first fight with Blades, that was more of an injury. As opposed to, him actually losing a fight. In my eyes, Tom Aspinall's undefeated in the UFC. Again, I don't think anyone's come close to, making him look bad or look human or anything. So I'm curious to see where he goes. The only problem right now is heavyweight's a little thin. I would hope they could figure out a way to bring Francis Ngannou back, get him out of that PFL contract. Ngannou and Aspinall is the fight everyone wants to see. But I'm just glad this is out of the equation now, because I think what Jon was trying to do was he was trying to convince certain fans that if I beat Stipe, I'm the greatest heavyweight of all time. He's not the greatest heavyweight of all time. His resume is impressive. Again, I don't think we'll ever see anyone like him at 205 again. That was unreal. But the heavyweight thing, you got 2 wins. I don't know if that's enough to say greatest heavyweight of all time. Stipe Miocic had more title defenses. I would put him ahead of Jon Jones personally. So yeah, That's my thoughts. I'm just glad this is over, and I'm also glad that people can stop, doing this whole like, well, it's just a negotiating ploy. No, it's not. He doesn't want to fight him, and this is proof of this. He's retired. It's done. It's not happening. So, yeah, just wanted to come on here and say I was right, because I said this for a year. We're going back like 2-3 years ago that I said he would not fight Aspinall, and I was right. So, I got to take a little pride in this video as well, because I didn't think it would happen. And listen, I've been wrong about a lot of things, but this is one I was absolutely right on. So let's get Tom Aspinall booked. Let's get the division moving, and let's continue the rest of 2025. How does that sound? All right. So let me know what you think in the comment section below. I think most people did expect this, right? I don't think I'm saying anything like out of the ordinary here. But it's just the timing of it. I don't think Jon's interview with Full Send helped. I'm sure that contributed to them being like, okay, enough's enough. Like if he's sitting there on Full Send being like, yeah, I don't know if I'm going to ever fight again. It's like, okay, well, enough's enough. Let's stop making this fight. I also thought they were holding on because of the TV deal. Apparently not, because like I said, he retired. Last time I checked, UFC doesn't have a new TV deal either. So yeah, let me know what you think in the comments. What do you think about a Tom Aspinall, Cyril Gane matchup? Let me know all that in the comments. Follow me on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, @Lynch on Sports. My name is James Lynch. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.